On the sidelines of the second National Mental Health Festival, yes, that's not something you hear very often, I'm being joined by the director of NIMHANS. If you're not familiar, NIMHANS has been at the forefront of mental health conversations, research, and treatment for many decades now. Dr. Pratima Murthy, apart from being a director, is also senior psychiatrist with decades-long experience in dealing with addiction psychiatry and also community involvement. Congratulations on a wonderful initiative and a much needed one. How important are festivals like these? I only use the same word that you're using in bringing community involved, not just relying on corporates or governments, but bringing civil society and community into the conversation of mental health.
I must congratulate Rohini and Lekani Philanthropies for actually bringing this Manotsav, the second edition, here to Bangalore. I think it's so important. We were just discussing earlier that you have so many different kinds of festivals. You might have cultural fests, you might have music fests, but to have a festival on mental health and celebrating mental health is indeed very important. And this is the second version of the festival. I think the greatest thing to me is that it enables so many different stakeholders to come together, particularly persons with lived experience, users of services, providers of services, scientists, government policy makers. So I think bringing them all onto a common space for conversations around mental health does two things. It informs. You'd be surprised even among specialists or even among government, how little knowledge there is about mental health, about scientific aspects of what helps mental health, and what kind of policies and programs need to be done at a public level to actually increase mental health awareness as well as capacity. So that's why it becomes very important. And of course, it also helps to clarify misperceptions about mental health and well-being. A lot of people have so many different, thoughts about it. The third thing is the language of science. How do you convey that language of science in a way that lay people understand, lay people participate? And they also, I think in India, one of the things that we need to do is encourage people's participation in scientific research. And I think that's also another element of what happens here. It's also finally about empowering people, making sure that they care for their mental health and well-being, but also seek out help when they need to without any worry about stigma or discrimination. But I think, and this platform serves many of these things.
Right. Often when we think of mental health, it's only in times of crisis. I know that's changing. But how can we bring this into our everyday conversations so we don't look at it only as a response to a trigger, but to also perhaps prevent those triggers to whatever extent we can?
I think that's the most important thing. When you look at any kind of issue in society, you use some kind of either a pyramidal approach or what's called the traffic light approach. So normally we tend to only get help when we're in the red and things are just going beyond the point. But I think the most important thing is to keep the greens green. And that's about looking after your mental health. And what is looking after your mental health? It is all the same things that you do for physical health, which is eating well, sleeping well, exercising, learning how to deal with stress, learning how to control your thoughts, emotions, and feelings, managing them. I won't say control them, managing them. And these are all important aspects, good mental health. In fact, when you look at health, in addition to physical and mental health, it's also social health, which impacts mental health. So how do we stay connected with people? How do we get the support of people? How are we more compassionate and empathic as a society? That's also very, very critical. And finally, what are the places where we can go to for help? And how do we access that help is very important. The other thing is, for example, if I'm at risk, you mentioned risk. So if I'm at risk for some kind of a problem, how do I understand that risk? What can I do to prevent that risk? A typical example is, even for mental illnesses, life events, for example, are known to precipitate episodes of mental disorder. So if I know how to look after my mental health, deal with this distress, it's possible that I don't go on to develop a mental disorder, or the mental disorder is not as severe as it is, or doesn't get precipitated as it does. Same thing goes for suicide prevention. Why do young people particularly, turn to suicide as an option? It's because they feel helpless, hopeless, and that there's no kind of support available to them. Getting young people to understand, getting young people, getting women, getting everybody in society to understand that there is always help available. This is where they can reach out to, that it's important that their situation will change. It's only momentarily that they feel like that. But if they get help, that moment will pass. I don't know how many suicides could have been prevented.
Right.
And that, I think, is the value of mental health services, particularly in the preventive and promotive health. Then, of course, in India, we have the advantage of both a lot of tradition of well-being, from yoga to the Bhagavad Gita, to understanding spirituality. How can we use that to help people, combined with other global literature that's available? And I think that's really is the huge advantage we have and the huge opportunity we have.
You mentioned women, and that brings me to my next question. One prism that mental health perhaps is not looked at from enough is from the gaze of women, right? Because there are so many layers that women have to deal with in society, especially in India. Is dealing with mental health issues of women more challenging, different in any way from other categories?
So I think the biggest problem has been, or biggest challenge has been, even globally and particularly in our country, that a lot of service planning, including research, generally tends to assume that research on men can be generalized to the public. We know that's not true. We know that from a variety of reasons, whether it's physiological reasons, whether it's socio-cultural reasons, the issues are quite different from a gendered perspective. And therefore, I think it's very important to engage women in dialogue and conversation. Help seeking also is a very gendered thing.
Yeah.
Women leave it, as we discussed earlier, leave it too late.
Yeah.
And they get too little too late. And that's why I think it's important to shift that narrative and make sure that women's needs are looked at. And I think as women's roles in society change, the problems also change. And, they're having multiple responsibilities, working at home with this in the same conventional norms, and, being able to be productive at workplace can have its own challenges. Then, of course, there is, child rearing, a whole lot of those things. And it's also very well known that perhaps women, for example, in leadership roles can also be very pivotal in changing the mental health landscape. How do you nurture women's participation, women's well-being, women's growth in society without adversely impacting their mental health is also very important.
Another section is young people. I know we did a story on this, on how more young people are turning to AI as a replacement for therapists. What do you make of this, and how can technology be both a boon and a bane in that sense?
I think first of all, we must look at the very serious question as to why young people are needing therapists in such large numbers. There's a disconnect somewhere. So perhaps one of the things that we need to look at is what we do as parents, what we do in the community, what we do at schools, what we do in colleges, and try and see what kind of programs that we have to better connect young people to one another, to the community at large, and get them to move from a highly individualistic to a more collective kind of belonging, sense of belonging and achievement, so that there is all the angst is not around either competitiveness or a lack of opportunity or feeling very lonely and alienated. I think that's very important.
I know we're pressed for time, and this is my last question, ma'am. COVID has exposed how our systems are not built in a way to handle emotional stress. Have you seen that change over the last couple of years, or has it been status quo?
I think a lot has changed post-COVID, and I think that's a realization that mental health is not important only for people with severe mental illness. Of course, it's important for them, but that every one of us needs to be consciously aware of our mental health, how to nurture and look after our mental health, how to deal in an adaptive way and develop resilience, and how everybody has some strength which needs to be cultivated and thing. And I think mostly, we've realized how it's important to be compassionate and empathetic in society. But there are newer problems. Technology is one problem. Extreme degrees of intolerance, interpersonal violence is something that we're reading much more of. So I think we need to convert that around to much more humane way of understanding each other and helping each other.
Dr. Murthy, I appreciate your time, and I'm going to let you go only because of a lack of time. We had many more questions, but thank you for joining.
Thank you very much.